Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and of course, all of you that are able to take part in this live broadcast Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, of course, are the co-hosts of this channel. This is a tabletop role-playing channel, and we take inspiration from everything around us, especially pop culture. And today we are taking a look at a specific character from House of the Dragon. Yes, we're talking about the princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, and we are going to use that inspiration, the portrayal of this character, especially in the televised version, and use that for our tabletop role-playing experience. And to give you, allow me the honor of giving a little background for this character for those who have not seen the show, and to try to avoid as many spoilers as possible. So, yes, to my side here are some images of the actress that plays the televised version of Rhaenyra Targaryen. Now, I will place in the chat the proper spelling. Let's see if we can get the I'm going to misspell the hell out of this. There we go. And capital R. And this character was as portrayed in the televised version is was granted the leadership of Westeros, the Iron Throne, by her father, Viserys. Now, Viserys, her father, wasn't exactly the most robust or effective or intimidating presence. So while his firstborn son had died in childbirth, and he knew that someone was pressured very much to appoint someone of his blood to take over the realm, he appointed his daughter, Rhaenyra. Now, in this extremely male-dominated world of politics, basically politics by genitalia and bloodlines, worse, the worst governmental possibility and function, people were not going to respect this. So when another child was born by his second wife, named Aegon, kind of like Caesar in a modern context, having a name that people recognize, being a male that is supposed to take the throne at a particular point, and eventually this child was, or at least the propaganda was created to place this child on the throne. We have ourselves the war known as the Dance of Dragons, where the blacks, represented by Rhaenyra, are on one side of the family, and the greens, represented by Aegon, are on the other side of the family. Now, as we're watching the show has not ended, but it has passed its halfway mark, and we are at a period of time where both sides are losing in this massive civil war, using dragons like fighter jets in a medieval context. Now, if you guys understand when we talk about using pop culture, a lot of times I like to put them in basically three categories, like an ally, someone the player characters can rely on, an adversary, a character that presents trouble for the player characters, although not necessarily an enemy, and then lastly, we have ourselves your classic enemy, an opponent, placing them against the player characters and putting this character not just in the way of the player characters, but adamantly against them. Now, Rhaenyra, to her credit, growing up, has always been a rebel. And I think as an ally for the player characters, Rhaenyra really represents the person who chafes against the rule structure of this pseudo-medieval society, especially in Game of Thrones, and then if you're playing in a fantasy realm or what have you, when it comes to transitions of power. She represents the rebellious nature. You're fine. Too late. You already did it. Yeah, come with the clever comments. Too late. You already did it. And she, yeah, which you see the show. Yes, I am a variant. Maybe I'm a variant of myself. I've replaced myself. Get out of here, timeline, DBJ. Pluck. Um, yeah, I don't know. Time travel is one of those weird things that like never quite. There are very few hyper accurate versions of it, but it can be fun. That's true. Drew makes a point. Variants can be from the past too, and variants can be sideways. Um, Same timeline, different histories. Who knows? That could have come from a post-apocalyptic setting or an extremely high science fiction setting because Tesla became president or something like that. Nikola Tesla or something. I don't know. Although that brings up a different story. So in Game of Thrones, in House of the Dragon, Rhaenyra is basic, for lack of a better term, she represents the least evil, despicable character of many despicable characters in House of the Dragon. They're all pretty horrible and do some horrible things. She's the least likely. And unfortunately, her claim to fame is not just chafing against the rules, but throwing those rules in the face of many people who basically are like, she can't represent the rules of society because she can't even bother to learn them and follow those rules. And a lot of times those rule conventions are extremely I was about to say patriotic. Wow. Extremely on supporting the patriarchy in this medieval society. And she's like, no. Also, clearly in the show, she has children. And as her children grow, they are amazingly socially adept. They are fully grown, growing individuals with their own motivations, highly educated, self-motivated, self-actualized, unlike the sides on the kids on the Greens side. And this goes to show that, yeah, she doesn't follow the rules, but at least as far as portrayed in a television show, she is a nurturing individual and can separate her nobility and the rules and structures and the expectations of nobility and blend that with raising a viable human being to take control. So as an ally, of course, she was for New England Patriots. Yeah, I was just like, yeah, not patriarchy, patriotic whatever that is. Always the foibles in my voice. Very early in the morning here, by the way. Always putting myself firmly. Yeah, smash the patriarchy. Only if you've got something to replace it with. In which case, in her case, and it rather ironically on the green side, her ally turned enemy, there is the case of like backing yourself into a corner and finding out that things aren't exactly the way they should be. Let me see if I can find an image of our two princesses on opposite sides of the Civil War. Oh, I know there's one in here. Anyway, I probably passed it. Let's see. And Alicent. So these two young ladies, we'll use this image here. These two young ladies grew up together, groomed for nobility and being a princess. And Rhaenyra, especially because of her Targaryen heritage, and her father, Viserys, was able to get away with a number of things. Of course, she was having illicit affairs when she, unfortunately, her womb is relegated for leadership and government because of how this type of society works. And she's like, nah, what I have useful, my sexual organs are my own, and I get to choose what I want to do with them. And she goes and decides to do that. It hurt someone's feelings. There's a lot more drama in that, as well as the fact that because she is a dragon rider and because she's Targaryen, the fact of these are the two individuals when they were younger, hanging out, and they were very close when they were younger. There is a rumor that they may have been more than just best friends, but you get the point that maybe they are. The rift between them and knowing that their children will be murder killing each other later on in their history, it's pretty deplorable. The fact that they would even tolerate something like that. But unfortunately, it is a Game of Thrones, and so they understand that if one of them ascends to power, that the other must be eliminated completely, or else the other one will. They know they either get the throne or they die, and there's a power structure or around them forcing them to do this. Something else to make Rhaenyra an ally is really pretty easy because she very well has been promised a form of leadership. Yeah, Drew Fuzzy wants to bring back Loth and the matriarchy. Yeah, cast that magic while giving birth. Your spell levels go up by +1 per month of pregnancy. That's a real thing. You guys look that up. But in seriousness, in fantasy, especially fantasy D20, she's really good. She would make a great ally, especially one who's been denied her proper due, especially if her father, the prior king, really nice guy, very peaceable, basically says, no, my daughter will become queen without needing to have a king. Just like, I cannot confirm nor deny. As webs get spun everywhere and giant spiders start snatching us all up, and like, no, they're friendly, just follow their lead. As I get pulled by my legs, and maybe my variant selves get eliminated while I hide and cower in a corner. I think I would like that. Very much so. By the way, guys, I'm a TVA trainee, so I get a 90-day grace period, so that also helps as well. So the making her an outsider and appealing to player characters' desire to want to be outsiders, to be rebels, to chafe against the rules, I think really fits for her as far as an ally. She doesn't necessarily need to be a martial ally, she doesn't need stats, she doesn't need to be on the battlefield, although she could, especially because she is a dragon rider, and in your fantasy, whether you have dragons or not, she could possess some other arcane power or necessity that the players need, whether she has great wealth or access to the clergy or alchemy or other kinds of arcane power. She very much fits into that. If she were a Fae princess, or heck, even a interdimensional ally of some sort, she controls a fleet of airships or something like that, she would be that kind of character who's placed on the outside and obtains the empathy of the player characters in terms of how she is treated. Players may come across a number of NPCs that talk about her character, and then the PCs find out, like, oh, once we meet them, yeah, we understand because everybody else is a bully, doesn't like you, disrespects you. Every time words fall out of their mouths, they're disrespectful. And when the player characters finally meet this character, they go, oh, wow, she's not bad at all. I didn't realize that. Now, as an adversary, this is Rhaenyra as an ally. Now, as an adversary, Rhaenyra may be may have a current plot to take back her throne, to say, hey, listen, I was promised a throne, and slight spoiler alert, there is a greater reason why she's fighting for the throne. And it's not just because my daddy said I should have the throne. There's also the portent, the prediction, the prophecy. Oracles have foretold. There were visions into the future, known as the Song of Ice and Fire. And Aegon the First, Aegon the Conqueror, that first came to Westeros, and all the bloodlines that came after, all the Targaryen bloodline, those in nobility, it is predicted that Aegon foresaw the future and says that a Targaryen must be on the throne to unite the kingdom against the rising winter coming from the north, the White Walkers, the evil that is brewing up north. And that, so she is not just fighting for her own arrogance or what's her due, but also understands, and each member of that family is told from generation to generation that is in leadership to pass the Song of Ice and Fire, to say, hey, listen, you need to sit upon the throne. The problem with prophecies and predictions and that kind of thing is that many times most of us are pretty arrogant, and we think those predictions apply to us right now because I'm the most important, and doesn't really apply to the future. Having a civil war with dragons fighting dragons very much is against probably what the prophecy was trying to say. And it's like, listen, we need as many dragons as we can to be able to go up north and fight against a great evil. And if we are all dragon riders, maybe that would help. Of course, no one's really thinking about that part. So specifically in the television show, there is a voiceover as the prophecy of the Song of Ice and Fire is being foretold, while there's literally a dragon battle going on. So, yeah. The End King says, yes, the rising threat from the wintry north. I know. The supernatural danger that cannot be easily solved by a rogue with a dagger. Yeah. Wah, wah. House of the Dragon does a great job at intermingling, as telling us what this danger in the future might bring. If only the show itself recognized the fact that, yeah, we already saw it, and wow. Yeah, and the funny thing is, I didn't have a problem with how the last season turned out. I know some people were just like, that doesn't make any sense. I hated the way it was executed. So I didn't mind how it came about. I just thought the execution of and outcome of many of those characters was just like, what? It's so damn surface level. Yeah, it's oof. Yeah, the wintry. It's unfortunate. So one thing could be that Rhaenyra, or a Rhaenyra type character, as an adversary to player characters, the player characters may need her help, and she's got a plot of her own, and that may intermingle or it actually be an obstacle to what the player characters want. Maybe she's raising an army, she has arcane power over something like dragons that are extremely dangerous, and she warns the player characters like, listen, I don't mind what you're doing, but you got to stay out of my way because I need something. Also, a twist on the adversary and Rhaenyra wanting to get her obtain her throne that's been promised to her is that characters or adversaries that are classically evil might not be in opposition to the player. So forgetting alignment and all of that kind of nature, there may be like this Rhaenyra character could be like a Medusa or a hag, or have some other power that normally in another context would be they would be basically a big bad evil guy, but instead she's like, no, I'm trying to instill order, and yes, I do want to get power, but I'm not against everyone else. I just want to get what is rightfully mine and promised to me, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So an evil power, the player characters may need to compromise and let an evil power take some sort of control or advance in their power, because better them than some kind of a nihilistic apocalyptic power, right? Like a Rakshasa, hag, naga style character, or I'm sorry, adversary in a position of power might be like, listen, I don't want the destruction of all society. I just want wealth and privilege, and the rest of the stuff you guys can have that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And King, yeah, it says we accept mistakes from a story when we feel the storytellers care. As a matter of fact, some would argue that that has already been done in House of the Dragon, and no one cares. There's a slight spoiler: Rhaenyra and her now enemy but past best friend, Alicent Hightower. Rhaenyra snuck behind enemy lines to speak face to face with her once best friend and basically family member, and to have a discussion. And some people were saying it makes very little, if any, sense for Rhaenyra to put herself out there. And in many ways, I agree with that. But story structure wise, we needed to see that conversation happen. And because the writers and creators of the show are so good, I think a lot of people who had a problem with that scene were like, you know what, I'll choke that down. You know what, a slight bitter taste, but whatever. Uh, you overcooked the meal a little bit or didn't add enough flavor to that part. Okay, but we'll overlook it because we get what you're doing. Sometimes there's plot, sometimes there's story. Plot is the physics of what is happening in the story. It is the actual one thing. Character walks through door, character finds clue, follows clue to next plot point. That is what plot is. Plot really isn't about emotion. Story is about emotion and motivation and things like that. And so plot wise, maybe not the best scene, but we understand because they care. And a lot of times we ignore plot holes, or yeah, plot holes, if story is very good. I bring up Avengers Endgame is a perfect example of that. A lot of plot holes, but we go, time travel plot holes, yeah, whatever. Great story. Drew says House Targaryen was unfit. That is why we have to wait for the far future and House Atreides to unite humanity. Oops. Will there be a jihad of some sort? Oops. Yeah, for people who are fans of the Dune and Dune 2 movies, yeah, Paul Atreides isn't exactly the hero that we think he's supposed to be. And if they're true-ish to the books, as great of an actor and portrayal of the character is, I think some people who don't know anything about the world of Dune is going to be a little bit disappointed. As he brings a war to the rest of the universe. Yeah, it's Dune Messiah and all that. But you are very, funnily, House of the Dragon and all these competing houses and things like that. It's like the lesser of like multiple evils, because many of these characters that we feel for, and when bad things happen to them and we go, ooh, that's a character I can attest to and I feel for them, they're all pretty despicable. Dune 2 is such a funny thing to hear someone say. Yeah, when I said it, here the funny thing is, as I said it out loud, even I said was like Dune 2. It's weird, right? Because maybe Dune something else should have been better instead of calling it Dune 2. But yeah, it is really weird to say, like, hey, remember that that movie Going with the Wind 2 Part 2? Yeah, it's weird to say something like that. But it's really strange. Maybe Part 2 or Chapter 2 would be a better way to describe it. I don't know. Speaking of plot and story, have you listened to the RPG model of roleplay that James Bacon is working on? I have not. Please do me a favor and drop a link if you don't mind. I'd like to listen to something like that if that is the case. So yeah, absolutely. Now, another way to make Rhaenyra Targaryen an adversary to the player characters is maybe she is a temporary ally, later on knowing the player characters might be at odds with her. And this may be very upfront with her. Rhaenyra isn't so much a liar as being pushed back on her heels. So, for example, she may very well offer the player characters, she may be a plot giver, right? She may be a quest giver for the player characters. Hey, here's a location you can go to acquire some kind of power. Here are some enemies you can defeat, and so on and so forth, knowing full well that she may even specifically say to the player characters, listen, I really need your help. We are aligned, but I understand once I take the throne that you may have a problem with how and why I take the throne and what goes on from there. Especially if the player characters find out about the prophecy itself, maybe through rumors or a vision quest, or players have some kind of arcane knowledge about the future, and they may see someone on the throne, not know who it is, and this character may represent at least more than 50% of the traits of the person that the players are like, oh, okay, I think she fits the role. And so that may be an issue. Now, she may also be an adversary if one or more of the player characters are destined to take some kind of command structure, and she's like, no, someone else appointed me to that. And so that could be the case. Similar to like politicians joining together because they have a common cause, but then only one of those politicians can then rise to the occasion. That is similar to how American politics is done. You know, you have a Republican convention and a Democratic convention. And so not normally, but many times there will be multiple individuals under one banner, all representing the same political faction. And then at a certain point, one is picked. And so she could be an ally and then eventually become an adversary. Okay, there Drew says Bacon has his own YouTube channel for some weeks now and stirs there's some debate up. Okay, thank you very much. Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm gonna check that out. Let me I can't copy and paste. But James D. Bacon. Okay, perfect. And I'm very familiar with James Bacon's opinions, because he's shown up on the show and in the background of Table Talk and He's Geek First, so I'm familiar with it. And I actually was on a televised when the Heroine's Labyrinth was book came about, and I was on that telethon. multi-hour streaming thing, so I was on there with it. Having to choose the lesser evil in a royal dispute, that could be tricky. Do you choose the person with no morals or the lich who is committed to their beliefs? I often wondered that, right? Like what if the evil lich is truly bringing law and order to a realm and committed to, like, listen, all I want to do, I don't even want to spread my power. I just want this corner, and I also want to live forever. So let me just live here. Dr. Doom is a perfect example of that, right? In the comic books, Dr. Doom is like, oh no, I'm the royal blood and leader of Latveria, and stop coming over to my country. And the characters, I was about to say player, I'm thinking of Marvel superheroes, phase rip, but it in the comic book world, Dr. Doom often becomes an ally / adversary all the time, and an enemy, because of his position in the global world, that he's literally a politician of a whole nation, and the people that live there are like, yeah, he's pretty draconian, but we also have a lot of high technology and not a lot of street crime, so we love it. the greedy master of coin, the idiot who thinks he's a dragon chess master? Do you pick the true evil who is honest and keeps his word? And you know what? I like that. I like the idea that there's like do you pick pure chaos because you don't know what the hell's going on, or do you pick the honest person who says to people like, no, I want power and I want wealth and privilege and fame, you know? Yeah. Stop it. I can't wait to hear from his brother, Crispy Bacon. By the way, guys, bacon is no longer a meat. It's moved up to a seasoning. Like, it should be on the table with all other condiments. There's no limitation on bacon. I want to alert everyone out there. 5 out of 4 doctors have stated this, so just be aware. Yeah, can't wait to hear from his brother, Crispy Bacon. I'm gonna leave that up there. Now, Rhaenyra Targaryen as an enemy, you would have to slightly move the needle over because she is a dragon rider and commands dragons and things of that nature. She may have a logical and approachable and even reasonable request to be on the throne of whatever fantasy realm you have, but those around her and her tactics may be wrong, or at least are completely in opposition to the player characters. And one of the things that happens in the show, you really see like the very dangers of having dragons on battlefields, and it's possible that Rhaenyra may harness some kind of power or have allies that they themselves are the problem, and she may even beseech the player characters like, listen, these are the people on my side. Better they be on my side than be my enemy. What is the keep your friends close and your enemies closer? And she may reasonably even tell the players like, listen, just to let you know, I really don't want them in a seat of power, but better they be on my side so I know where they're at and what they're doing than to let them run rampant. Like, she may have a necromancer as one of her council members, and she may have like a powerful elementalist as one of her council members, and maybe ripping apart the countryside, or mind controlling the population, or developing an army of undead, or summoning evil spirits or something like that. And the players are like, listen, we're gonna have to shut you down. And this Rhaenyra character may be saying to everyone like, listen, I get it, but without this power on my side or making these compromises, there's no way I can eliminate the greater evil that is trying to usurp the throne. Also, there may be something involved in it, like a promise. Maybe she's made promises like a warlock to great powers without knowing what the ramifications are. So she could literally be innocent, but she has promised her soul, her family, or some structure where her council is made up of the evil hags, a circle of evil hags, or the council of 7 wizards, something like that. And yes, they're granting her great power and are helping her ascend to the throne. And she's like, goes to the player characters and looks around and is like, listen, I need your help. That I need to stop them, but I can't stop them until I ascend the throne. Like and that would be a strange, kind of quirky plot to say, okay, we need to stop the evil powers, but you literally at the same time, those evil powers are supporting a good person. This could just be a spiral of compromising one's morals. Maybe the player characters are literally there putting band-aids on a character who keeps constantly compromising their morals to try to achieve a good thing. Like, oh no, there's 3 nations to the south. I need to obtain their loyalty. Okay, I'm going to have to promise that the Council of 7 can build a wizard's tower in the main city. And the PCs are like, we can't trust them. And this Rhaenyra character may say, I understand, but I have to promise to allow them to build this tower. I have to. Otherwise, my army can't walk through their territory. They won't, grant me their arcane power to ascend the throne. Afterwards, player characters, you're not aligned to anyone. Yeah, we'll take them down. But for right now, we know where they're at. If they build this tower, at least we know where they are instead of them being scattered to the winds or something like that nature. She could also just be evil. Okay, so instead of being innocent and goodly good, she could turn out to be evil. There is there's all the evil of goodness, unlike the good that can be found in evil, is the idea of the slippery slope of using the mantra for your own good. Sometimes, especially in tabletop role-playing games, and we're using like alignment and things, you tend to get very powerful, goodly and lawful entities that take on a parental child-like child-parent relationship with the population. So the more powerful that goodly and just and honorable and protective entity is, the more they go, listen, the common folk don't know what's good for them, but I do, and I'm doing this for their goodness, for their protection, and because the common people don't know what's going on. And a lot of that deals with perception, right? Like a soldier that needs to protect a village of 100 people has a different opinion than a warlord that has to protect 1,000 people versus a knight that must protect 100,000 people. Now, all of them can be equally lawful and good, but their priorities are different because of their perspectives. So when you get these powerful entities like a whole nation, does that mean you may have to sacrifice some people? Yes, but for the greater good. And that can very much be a slippery slope, which I'm sure many of our folklore and monsters in fantasy kind of fall into those categories where they start making promises and thinking that they can control great powers. That's where hags and fiendish contracts and all that stuff come from, because somebody good says, I'll do anything if only, or they will martyr themselves and sacrifice their own souls for the greater good. And this Rhaenyra character may be sacrificing herself, or thinking that she's sacrificing herself for a greater good. Dragons are a symptom of that, right? It's like, because she even mentions in the story, televised story, that there's been like 80 years of peace, and I'm the next in line to continue this world of peace. I'm going to do whatever is necessary to continue the peace. And that peace might be secret police, assassinations, lots of threats and intimidation, controlling the economies, and sending very powerful entities like dragons against their enemies, sending her own allies into battle to sacrifice themselves, to throw themselves against the onslaught of the greater evil. And she may be responsible for that. And the players may be thinking to themselves, if she keeps doing this, evil's going to eventually win because she's losing all her allies. She's basically sacrificing her ally one after another. Think of some other things. Rhaenyra has offspring, and Luke and Jace are her two notable children. She also has two other children that were taken away to the Eyrie, a allied house. I believe one of them is named Viserys, and the other one is the other one Aegon the Third or something? I can't remember. Anyway, so she has children as well, and the player characters may be tasked with both going after Rhaenyra, but then defending her children. I once ran a game where a king was very upset because he found out his daughter was having a relationship with a doppelganger, and the grandchild was a shape changer, and the child needed to be protected because the king was like it's not my daughter's fault, but also the doppelganger and the child are loyal to me, and I want to protect them. And so I ran a game, and in the game, the player characters had to defend essentially what was essentially a monster, because it wasn't the monster's fault for being born, and this could also be a thing as well. What if the Rhaenyra character has children? Clearly, in the storyline, she ended up having illegitimate children, and they are legally, in this pseudo-legal world of the patriarchy, they have been assigned and risen up to the level of nobility, but they are bastardized children, which is funny to say. Yeah, you talking about the slow corruption of power. It's like a slow, well-written version of Dany. Yeah, Dany and Daenerys turning evil. Yeah, very slowly. And a lot of times in stories like that, we see the slow degradation, and we're like, no, that's my favorite character. Breaking Bad is a good example of that, where we see a character that we're rooting for, and we see the necessity of them performing yet one more evil act that starts to erode their morality and their ethics, and we go, no, I understand why you're doing it, please don't, but I understand, but no. Right? And for example, she married her uncle, Daemon Targaryen, and Daemon is the epitome of a wild card. He's a living embodiment of a wild card. That's an issue. As a matter of fact, her own counsel kind of looks at her like, do you know what he's up to? Because he literally might want to usurp the throne from you yourself. Did he kind of groom his own niece that he bounced on his knee to eventually marry her? Yes, there's a lot of incestuousness in terms of the Targaryens. Yeah, that's one issue that she has. I guess that's in her own. She's literally married to her own issue and her own problem. Ineffectiveness. Some say ineffectiveness and cowardice has the same result as evil and decadence, meaning like she may be surrounded by those that are saying and doing the wrong things, and the player characters are now in opposition to her, not because they dislike her, but they dislike her judgment in terms of the people she's surrounded by. And again, a great plot point could be that she sends messages to the player characters like, I need help because I'm surrounded by people who've taken advantage of my goodwill, and I now know who they are, but they've risen in power and they need to be eliminated. Another way to look at this could be a how do I say this? This could be a good character who absolutely positively is embracing evil because in their head they know it needs to be done. So Rhaenyra could very well be very pleasant, treat the player characters very well, and as an enemy may say to the player characters, okay, listen, I appreciate you being on my side. You've done great things for the nation, but to unite everyone against a greater threat, I'm going to have to kill you. I'm going to have to make you public enemy number one. I'm going to have to send my own armies against you because I have to show a unified front. And unfortunately, you guys are going to be the victims of that. And I don't want that to be that way, but I've got to make the hard decision. Like this may be a literal, and the player characters may even understand her point in terms of unifying the world. The plot of The Watchmen is an example of doing extremely evil things to unite the world into peace and unity. That was the literal plot of The Watchmen, of a character who looks around and goes, "Yes, somebody has to sacrifice their own morality and ethics." Because I'm right now, I can't figure out which one is which. Ethics and morality are different, but they are two sides of the same coin. One are rules of society, and the other ones are self-imposed rules, and I can't remember which one is which. But this character could be a good person, which would you have to have some pretty well-versed player characters to go like, hey, we did a whole campaign where we put this goodly person on the throne, and then that goodly person goes, thanks for putting me on the throne, now I'm going to have to kill you, or undo what you've done, because I can't have you out there, because I have to appear strong, and you guys are the biggest threat to my legitimacy, and all of my other allies can't have that. I have to show a show of force. The players may react differently to all this if they're also nobility, rather than if they're the typical dirty peasant demigod adventurers. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, if one or more of the player, listen, fantasy tropes, right? We're talking D20. We're talking fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, and all the permutations thereof that split off from them. Tales of the Valiant, A5E, blah blah blah, right? Pathfinder, etc., fantasy, and all the non-D20 fantasy games. That if one or more of the player characters is a noble, and that's usually an option, that if they are nobility, they may be in conflict with her just simply by blood. That conflict might happen, especially, like, let's say you get a noble character that doesn't want the throne. Really, will her or her entourage believe that? For the most part, no. That's why Rhaenyra and Alicent are at odds anyway, right? It's because even if one of them wanted to step down and go, you know what, I don't want the throne, all of the other royal members are going to go, I don't believe you, because there's no way you don't want power, right? There's no way you don't want to ascend the throne. I don't believe you. That's like those people who become very rich and famous and whatnot, and they go, nah, I don't want that. I don't want the power. I want to step away from the spotlight. And all the rest of us are going, yeah, right. I mean, I hear you saying that, but that's not true. That's like those musicians or writers or directors or all that are like, after this, I'm retired. And we all roll our eyes like, no, you're not. I believe you think that, but that's not the case. And so that's why it's ascend the throne or be killed. And a noble player character who's like, nah, I don't want the throne, might get pulled into this, not inadvertently, but through gravity, get pulled into this fight. Also, players might start, there may be other powers that are speaking into the player character's ear, like, Rhaenyra Targaryen is ascending the throne, but we think you might be better. Sidle up close to her, and we'll talk about this later. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Now, like you mentioned, and King, like, if they're dirty peasants, right, and they start gaining a lot of power themselves, when you step outside the power structure, that's also a problem. We have that in our real world. If you don't follow along with the power structure that is available, corporate structure, political structure, religious structures, and you fall outside of that and you start creating your own power and your own influence and such, it's like a musician that becomes a very influential independent artist without the help of without needing a contract to be signed and things of that nature, producing your own music and gaining power in it. It's like, you're getting outside the power structure. We need to shut you down. What is it? Tucker, the creator of the Tucker cars, who was shut down, who by the automotive industry. The whole documentaries have been made about it. There's a dramatized version of the movie that was made about it, about the 50 cars that didn't exist and legally couldn't exist and whatnot. Yep, exactly. Like when Michael Jordan retired a few times. Yeah, you can't step away. And as horrible as the patriarchy may be in Game of Thrones, it does work against you. We're going to talk about this tomorrow about Alicent, because in the story, Alicent has at a certain point has the option to ascend, to take control of the nation as the I'm going to butcher this, not the Dowager Queen, well, maybe either Dowager Queen or not Queen in Exile. Oh, I can't remember. Whatever the widowed queen would be. But anyway, Queen Regent, something like that. I don't remember all the nomenclature. But there's a point at which she's like, I should be in control. And someone brings up the point like, okay, we the Greens have been fighting to put your son, a male heir, on the throne simply because the population, the other houses wouldn't tolerate a woman. And now you're telling us that you want to be there? Like, that's a little hypocritical, and kind of backed herself into a corner. Even when I heard her words coming out of her own mouth, it's like, no, I'm a woman. I have power. Hear me roar. And they look at her like, you do realize you're on the side of the people that are like, no, we shouldn't have a woman on the throne. The House of the Dragon does a great job at amplifying the voices and experience of the women during this time, which wasn't really the case in Game of Thrones. And you know what power they may have or not have, what voices they have and not have. We will talk about not Rhaenyra, Rhaenys, another name, Rhaenys. Oh, we'll talk about Rhaenys and her. She was known as the queen who never was, and it's unfortunate because I think even people who call her the the queen who never was, understand that she had more judgment and more political savvy and even martial savvy than most of the men combined during her era and her reign. And yeah, it's like, we made a mistake. Oh, sorry. Sorry, queen who never was. Who had the opportunity to become the queen, and everyone voted for the other weaker dude, Viserys, the nice king. Nice but ineffective in many ways. Some would say that. Although in House of the Dragon, there are many people who are reminiscing about Viserys and was like, man, I wish he was around. yeah, there were many people that thought of that as well. So. Complicated storylines, we can easily draw from these stories as well. There may be some of the power that these characters have, these Targaryens, these dragon riders. You could translate that power into your story where it is a corrupting influence, a power that even the player characters know that at some point, if they don't get a cure or unalign themselves or get to a level of influence where they don't need to use those powers. Let me go back to my example about elementals and elementalists. Maybe these individuals use this power to wipe out whole armies, but like a rising tide or a storm on the horizon, even they themselves know that if they keep using this power, there's no way to stop it. It's constant rolling of the dice. It's like, I might draw a card, and every time I draw a low card, low impact. But if I draw those high cards, I draw King, Queen, Ace or something, I might not be able to stop the floodwaters or the earthquakes or the meteor strikes or the heat waves or the famines that are induced by the weather events, or the elementals that we lose control of that have been influential in dominating the battlefields, but now those elementals are on their own and becoming more sentient. They're not just living flame, but they start gaining personality and their own motivations, and they start transferring into bigger and better and more powerful elemental forces or something. And the same could apply to our dragon riders, right? Those dragons seemingly grow larger through time and start consuming much more. Also, it seems like the dragons also hibernate, so that when they're asleep, they kind of don't consume a lot of power, but or a lot of resources. But when they're active, they must consume a lot of resources, food and things like that. I don't know. Not exactly. They don't give you a lot of information about the nature of the dragons, but in our world, in our inspirational creation, that very well may be the case. What if Rhaenyra and her dragons or something are like a funnel, a whirlpool, a black hole of magic, and others realize that this pseudo anti-magic that is spawned from these dragons makes them extremely difficult to defeat. And while on one hand it helps them drive, every time there's a dragon lord that takes over a city, the evil of the spellcasters of the Council of Seven Wizards is unable to penetrate the defenses, but those dragons might be growing and getting bigger, and that anti-magic might be spreading, in which case that may affect the player characters and their capabilities. And the players are like, yeah, we get it, but we also want our special capabilities on my character sheet, and I can't use half of them because your dragon has aged another 8 months or something like that. Like, that may be the case as well. That could be pretty fun. Rhaenyra may be the ultimate quest giver in living form. Maybe this character is like a warlock patron and a clerical demigod and all of those things combined. And maybe this is the kind of character players need to put on support and put up into a position of power, while at the same time in this world there are many people who are jealous of that power and are going around trying to eliminate people with that power, like the X-Men. I like to bring up the X-Men a lot too. The X-Men and the mutants and things like that. There's mutant hysteria, and there are people who are out to kill them, and she wants to gain power, make a safe place for the people who have this kind of power, but she may also be sending out assassins and entreating with those who are eliminating the haters. She may be forced to torture the haters of her and her kind in the public squares and stuff. You never want to hear yourself described as a quest giver. I know. I'm using a shorthand. Yeah. Also, I purposely wanted to leave this comment up here. When you talked about that's like when Michael Jordan retired a few times, it could be that there is a I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. A strange but different type of enemy could be one that raises his head over and over again, but goes away quickly. And every time the players think that evil goes away, they know that evil will raise its head again. It's the classic "I'd have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids" plot from Scooby-Doo, right? It's the a one or more characters. We're presuming that they are the best to ascend power. They may use a power that is uncontrolled, or let me use a classic portal opening into the nether realms, like the Nine Hells or the Abyss or something like that. And this character may use that power knowing that it's going to cause a lot of issues. And the player characters may understand, yeah, they're not going to survive long unless they use this power, and we're kind of the cleanup crew. And there may come a point where the players are thinking to themselves, like, I know she made a pact with this evil entity, and we understand why. But she won't listen to us to tell her to stop using that power. And yes, she listens to us for a few days, weeks, months, and years. But here she goes again. Her enemies on a rise. She opens up a portal to the nether regions, and here come some demons and devils pouring through. And damn it, here we have to try to close it back up again. And it's getting harder and harder. When are we going to permanently put a stop to this? And that may be the case, especially if she's very approachable, and the players have some kind of empathy or sympathy for this character, and going like, listen, don't do that anymore. Just come to us. And she may be like, listen, you're not here. I don't even want you to be here. You're adventurers. Go out in the rest of the world. I've got control of this. And like, you keep summoning demons and devils. You think you control them, and you're losing more and more control of that power. The more they're able to walk on this world, the greater foothold they have. Oh, brave adventurer, wilt thou pick up my medication from thy Walgreens? Thou shalt pick up yet while there at thy Walgreens and CVS. Thereist shall also pick up some drink and orange slices. Please pick up orange slices as thou stands in the lane. That may be the thing. Quest giver. Also, I think we've done enough. Rhaenyra, the best evil character, because she's made a lot of mistakes. Her judgment sometimes is really flawed in the show. Sleeping with Kristen Cole as her guard is, not right. Having children with another guardsman instead of her husband. I understand her husband was not sexually attracted to her, and they commented that they tried many times because he was not attracted to her gender. But I'm thinking in my head, like, you've got to try. Like, there's got to be other ways to figure this thing out. There's an innie and an outie, and you got to figure out how to get one into the other to get some kids out of this, because that's what this governmental form is. And she agreed to follow along with it. So, yeah. The Ant King says, I like that demon portal thing you were talking about. A helpful ally whose help becomes more and more of a monkey paw curse. Yes. Yeah. Especially, I like the idea that this isn't a secret, that it's an open secret. Like, maybe the population doesn't know, but the player characters are completely aware of it, because it sounds like the kind of thing players themselves would do. And I like mirroring player characters. Like, when they do a thing, for example, we have a player character type that is a warlock that has a unwitting and undesired relationship with a greater power. And we understand story-wise that some players play warlocks simply to get out of the pact that they agreed to in the first place, which is the character type, and this character might have a pact with a great power, or has access to a great power that the players are like, you do realize, like, this is 1, 2, 3, you're done. And this person says, yes, I understand, but I got to take the chance to do this. I have to. Hey guys, as a matter of fact, not only can I draw the power myself, I'm going to give some of that power to you. Just be careful how you use it, and it may be necessary if enemies keep physically and politically and socially and emotionally trying to beat against the walls, the vanguard of what's happening when this person rises to power. They should have a big smile on their face every time they help the party too. Hey guys, I won't let the terrace get you. Don't worry. Exactly, right? Right. Hey, I've got the keys dangling right here. And the player characters are sitting there doing the classic slow motion. No. And they're like, don't worry about it. As a matter of fact, in House of the Dragon, that's exactly what happens, right? We see how cool is it to be a dragon rider? And they even show like the dragon rider, the dragon, the Targaryens themselves and their bloodline buddying up to their best friend, the dragon, like a pet. And it's, oh, you're so fun, you're coochie coo, right? And yeah, it's cool until the dragons are acting like dragons, and then it's like, you ever see those amazing stories where it's like the human has raised a wild animal from birth, and that animal has a love for this person, and we see when they see each other from across a field or whatever, and the tiger, cheetah, rhino, elephant, monkey, whatever, bear runs at that human being, and it's like, oh, we're gonna love each other, and that's great. But until that wild, powerful animal is like, I love you so much, I'm gonna fucking crush you to death, right? And until dragons act like dragons, which is, me as a mailman, that's why we don't like people with dogs, because every dog owner says the exact same thing. Oh, he won't bite. And it's like, you do realize your dog's a dog. Like, you aren't present when your dog may act like a dog. Dogs are territorial. Dogs are animals. They're not people. You didn't have a conversation with your dog to say, please don't bite the mailman. But of course, everybody's feelings get hurt about keeping their dog restrained, which I don't know why. Sorry, rant here about a mailman, letter carrier. We are not your dog's friend. We're not your dog's plaything. It is not necessary for us to have a bond with your dog. Now, I'm a dog lover, but my job description I'm not a dog whisperer. There are literally hundreds of dogs on my route, and every single one of those people is like, well, my dog's special. Yeah, okay. 5 days out of the week when you're not home, your dog slams up against the window and doors of your house trying to get at me. And then when the sixth day comes along on a weekend, when you're outside mowing the grass or playing catch with the kids, and the dog is sitting on the lawn and sees me across the street and then goes running across the street, and you're just screaming, please don't spray my dog. I'm like, your dog's out of control. I'm not the one. Yeah. Rhaenyra writing is terrible, Chief, like a caricature. Okay, to each their own. We're not necessarily, well, okay. We are using this as examples to influence our tabletop role-playing there, Joanne. So, but I don't necessarily agree, but, depending on how it hits you, especially, mind you, we here on the channel always realize that books are always better than televised versions. Part of that is math, because books always have a larger page count, which means they have a larger word count, which means more descriptive power and time to express an idea than a script for television or movie. And second of all, every time you read a book, the music, the pacing, the look, the sound, the feel is in your head. We've already directed it in our heads. So yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. Well, and no, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, we keep our dog under control. It's just she ain't fully realized compared to Thrones characters, for example. Like, what is Rhaenyra doing this season? A nothing entity. A lot of them, I think they're doing that on purpose. That's my opinion. I don't know if they wrote it in there or something. I think they're getting across the idea that the female characters are many times in a power position where they're not doing anything. It can be terrible writing because you end up sitting there like, I understand you're trying to give us character development, but you also see the character spinning their wheels and not doing anything, not being effective, not being influential. So yeah, it can be difficult to write characters that are main characters that are also ineffective, because then we get frustrated because we're looking at the show, and the show promise as writers promise us something, meaning that the promise is that they're taking the characters from one step to another step, And when we don't see forward progression, we get frustrated with that. And behind the scenes, sometimes writers are going, well, this isn't the time we're doing forward progression. What we're actually doing is character development. Daemon, the Daemon Targaryen character, I think, is doing that right now, where he's stuck in Harrenhal and seems to be not doing anything because they're giving us character. They're giving us character development, not progression, and it can be a little bit frustrating. I'm not saying. Listen, I don't have a horse in this race, right? Like I'm not offended by it, but I get what they're doing. But when you extend it out, like when you have an hour show and it gets to 2 hours, 3 hours and stuff, we're looking like, okay, twiddle thumbs. Like, come on, you either need to give us more development by the character or get them to do something else, right? So I get it. Avar Borm, I'm presuming is how you pronounce your last name. I'm going to call you Joanne. Anyway, thank you very much for being here. We've come to the end of the show, unfortunately. Tomorrow we're going to talk about Alicent and using these characters as fuel for our tabletop role-playing experiences and turning them into allies, adversaries, and enemies. Start out with a little bit of background up the top, what this character is coming from, and then using that and kind of reframing, reusing, repurposing what they are, and using that for our own tabletop role playing. And so next week we're probably going to do something about the boys, probably, and then after that maybe we'll either go to an indie RPG or The Watchmen. I'm not sure which one yet. I have to be in an email chain. I gotta send off an email. Thank you very much for reminding me. But yeah, we're doing it for that purpose. So very, very difficult to write these characters. And by the way, as challenging as the televised show is, I still think overall it is brilliant. Even some of the side characters that we don't really get much detail about, I still think they're doing an excellent job portraying who they are. I especially love characters. I love a lot of face acting, like in Shogun, a lot of face acting, and a lot of characters not needing to do exposition dumping when characters use very few words because I'm intelligent enough to read between the lines. So that, yeah. Drew's like, the boys, yay! I don't know if you want to say yay. There's some imagery from the boys that I know I won't be able to put online in these live streams. So I'm going to have to figure out, especially when it comes to Homelander. Oh my God. The blood and gristle and that is expressed in oil tanker levels. Yeah, Alice, I know this world is killing her. Yeah. But anyway, yay, the boys. Yeah, we'll do that next week. We have to do the boys. I wondered if, at first I thought about the appropriateness of doing the boys, which I don't mind it being inappropriate, but made me think of that. And then it made me also think of, it made me think of tabletop role-playing games and how they can become Greek Girl. I presume that's how it's pronounced. Hey, well, first time here. Well, thank you very much for being here. I've gone a little late, so thank you very much if you've gotten here. I usually start about like 6:02 a.m. in the morning Eastern Standard Time, so I'm not sure about your time period and where you are around the world. But we talk about tabletop role-playing games. That's it. And I happen to be talking about fantasy for the most part, simply because we're talking about House of the Dragon. Not necessarily spoilers about the show, but using that to fuel our own gaming experiences, like NPCs and enemies and bad guys and plots and things like that. Think of it as getting together before the game or after the game, and you get that build up or cool down period, and so that's what's here. So yeah. Great to be. Well, no. Great to have you. I really appreciate it. I don't do 4 a.m. What the hell are you doing? Go get some sleep. You don't need to be catch this later or something like that. I appreciate you. Okay, listen. I'm in the Ohio Valley, and I understand that those of us in the States and America's hat, the United States hat and underpants, those that are the people that are there as well, have to get up at watch this live at a god awful time or listen in. But you also need to take care of yourselves, unless of course you're just getting in from work or you're getting ready for work or something like that. But I get it. Listen. I feel like I'm the crazy one. I don't want to have I don't want to have company. Oh man, yeah. I remember someone was from. Oh man, who was earlier than 4 a.m.? Someone from Hawaii, I believe, used to be on the show. Kylie. It's like that's friggin' early in the morning. Ooh, California, the Gold Coast, man. Whew. So yeah. If it's 4 a.m., so you're definitely at Mountain Time. No. Because if it's 7 a.m. my time, then it's got to be the West Coast or West Coast. Wow, my brain just farted. You guys know the time zone. Is it still called Eastern Standard Time? I can't remember. I always call it EST, Eastern Standard Time, but I think it's called something else as well. Matter of fact, I'm gonna look it up. Are we currently in EST or EDT? EST time now, and what's the D stand for? I can't. The Eastern Time Zone is also known as Eastern Standard Time. Yes, falls mostly along the east coast of North America. Its time offset is -5 hours. You have -5 from Greenwich. I can't remember. I'm going a little late because I'm actually off work right now. We call it your time. Yeah. Insomniac and my boys will be up in a couple hours. This is Mama's time. I'm in Arizona. Okay. Yeah, Arizona. So we don't have we don't have daylight time. So half the year we're Pacific, half we're Mountain. Pacific in the summer. Yeah. Okay. Because for a very short time, I have family that lives in New Mexico, and they also lived in Arizona. They're RVers, and they also lived in Arizona, and that was the case that their time zone. They didn't change time. Their time zone shifted from Mountain to Pacific. Yep. So that's awesome. Thank you for being here. Tomorrow we're going to talk about Alicent Hightower from House of the Dragon. She's a member of the Greens. She's the proverbial head of the Greens, kind of, maybe in name only. And we're going to talk about her and using her as an NPC, as an ally, an adversary, and an enemy of the player characters, and just get some inspiration from it. Sometimes we see things, and instead of trying, and let's be honest, we all suffer from world builder's disease, and we get. Let me turn this off here. Let's close you up here. And sometimes we are influenced by things that impress us. And instead of our creatively fighting against a thing, because oftentimes as creators, writers, artists, you name it, any creative endeavor, writing music and such, sometimes we take the opinion, I'm going to create something that is not like the thing that I'm interested in. And I would dare argue greens, no, not veggie greens, And although it could be green for money, green for envy? I think that's appropriate. The greens, the high towers, the greens represent like, oh, we're good for you, like vegetables, and we also want power. We're kind of jealous of the Targaryens, so they're a little bit jealous. Green with envy. They also pretend to be righteous, but they are corrupted bastards. So they are green with, not just green with envy, but green as in sick inside. So I'm gonna bring that up tomorrow. See what you did? See what you made me do? You inspired me. And so instead of us fighting against our inspirations, maybe we should just transform them a little bit. And so it's not theft, but an homage to the thing that inspires us. And so whether it's dance or writing music or fashion or graphic arts or novel writing or tabletop role-playing games and all of that, you know. Shai says, wow, that really does sound like the greens we've got over here. Yeah, because normally in the present day we think of greens as being like ecologists, protecting the environment and things of that nature, which in House of the Dragon, the greens may at least pretend to want to protect the world, the small folk, the realm there, to allow it to thrive and things of that nature. Sure, I would say that as well. They may feel that they are at least nutritionally good, like energy greens, you know. Yeah. That kind of thing. Your girl says, sure does. I forget what you're agreeing to, but yeah, we creatives over here, we just like to hang out and do our thing. I tend to pull a lot from literature and pop culture. So like, and I like how the sausage is made. So how television and movies are written or directed, the structure of how stories are told. I love how that is done, even if I don't agree with it. I like that, and I like the fact that many of you guys don't agree with me, which makes the channel better. It makes me feel like I'm hanging around brilliant people, because I don't necessarily have to agree with what people say, because everyone has their own mind, and many times, especially you young folk hanging around in your social medias, you're unable to express opposing viewpoints in a safe space and in a safe manner, without being like, that you guys know that's my rule about being in factions. You can tell the generosity, the veracity of a certain viewpoint by how they react to you when you disagree with that viewpoint. This definitely sounds like our greens. Yeah. Yeah. Well, also, I think the House of the Dragon, they were all in the books, they describe it this way, but I also think they were hesitant to describe the groups as the blacks and the greens, and the public began doing that. And mind you, I understand why they were hesitant to use the term the blacks and the greens. In the show, I think they used the greens a number of times, at least 4 or 5 times, if I'm not mistaken. I think they've only referenced the blacks once, maybe twice. But I can see how there are some who would take it the wrong way and be offended by it. Of course, as you can tell, I'm not offended by it. But there are some who to get some clout or to start trouble may also may emulate offense when there isn't any. But yeah, there is also that thing, like, do we really want to call them the blacks? Which is kind of funny because they do have black characters on that side of the fence because of the fighting between the two. So I guess that does apply as well. I had just thought about that. I was like, the actors in the show, oh shit, the Greens really are a little bit trying to pretend themselves as, no, they've got the Maester Orwell or Orwell or something like that. I guess he's the only one on the notable character on the green side. There's got to be more, because I know there's some that are in the Kingsguard, elevated in the Kingsguard. I can't remember. Anyway, you guys have a great one. I'm holding. Your time is too valuable for me to take. I hope instead I can give you back some change for you spending your time here as well. Tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll see you guys then. We'll talk about Allison and tabletop role-playing games then. Guys, have a great one. Next week, we're going to do The Boys. And then I can't promise we'll do something after that because I really want... You guys know I don't like to stay away from problematic material. I received an indie RPG based on 5th edition. Remember, I was doing the third-party, non-WotC, non-Hasbro, non-Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and this one is from Italy, based on the Book of Revelation and Dante's Inferno, from Italians from that culture, and it is really good. And I wanted to talk about that and some other Kickstarters and things that I've gotten and such. So I've thought about that as well. There you go. Happy Hump Day, and see you. Plus, see you on Vice Friday. Vice Friday, getting the party started a little early. You're like, yeah, it's just we got to get that pre-Friday going, right? So anyway, thank you very much, guys. I will see you later. Peace and tranquility. Bye.